As a bird watcher, I have the opportunity to pause at any moment of my day and connect with the world around me. And so from this practice of having a chance to, I guess, anywhere you are, connect. All right, Mr. Basilman. We have to work with the world around us. All right, so bird watching, we love bird watching. I'm going to move us through a series of activities. We are going to start with some internal watching. That is the focus of this session together. And we are going to turn the binoculars towards ourselves. So to do that, we are going to go ahead and take a couple breaths. Take a second to breathe in. And out. Again. And a third breath. Take a second to notice any internal sensations. If it's physical and you can sense that you're hot, you're tired, is there any energy that's kind of moving around inside of you? Does it feel agitated? Maybe you feel excited. Maybe you feel a combination of things. And can you take a second to maybe identify what those emotions are for you? I personally am feeling excited. There's a lot of content here. I do feel frazzled. We had technical difficulties beforehand, so that gives me a moment to notice, you know, when my environment's not in order, that's something that we connect with. It affects us. That's energy you can move with if you are not clear about what's happening, or it's energy that you can identify, connect with your cause, and shift. All right, I will keep us moving forward. We have a series of different reflection things that we will move through. There will be some background music as we pause and take time. As you're gathering, you may want to grab some paper. You've got space to move around a little bit. There may be times when you want to move your body. This is a chance for you, again, to bring the focus to yourself. Go ahead and get some content up for y'all. There we go. Our focus is the gift of our time as scientists. If you would take a second to connect to our playlist, there's some songs focused around the theme that you can connect into as we do our activities. The QR code and scan it with your phone. I'll have it back up on the screen in a little bit, so you can add to our playlist throughout this hour together. I'll bring you into my framework. Then we'll do another grounding. We'll get into 2 reflection activities and we'll close out together. I'm a doctoral student in the field of science education. I have many hobbies as a human. I like the outdoors. I care a lot about people, which is why I have thought about that personal care through the lens of science to think, okay, what ways do we want to engage with the world around us as an education person? There's science behind education, right? There is the knowledge that when we are safe and secure, we are able to focus on learning. And we do know in this world, safety is not a given on many different levels. Part of the reason why we have a Black Birders Week is because there's physical safety that's not guaranteed for people, and essentially emotional safety. There was a "you do not belong here" message that created a spark to say, what is going on in the world? Hey, this is a data point for us. And as people came together, there's many points, right? Yes, we are not welcome in public spaces at times. And yes, we love the outdoors. And yes, we love to look at birds. And yes, we have things we need to shift as a society. So we've got this Black AF collective. We've got people coming together to bring their relevant information. It's a lot to integrate. A practice of science that thinks we are very objective and disconnected from the world, we know is not a scientific perspective. We do know we're part of environments, and there's inputs to systems and outputs to systems. So when we have an interest in something like learning, education, science, there's more to consider than atoms, a textbook, a school. They're all of the factors that shape how we learn. And that is some of the work we will do today, because we don't have a lot of time that is focused on, okay, what are the goals that each individual has in this world? What are their gifts? Where are their places? We do know we are coming from a history where people were the parts of the machine. And what is good is to get kids into a STEM pipeline so they will be great scientists to make a lot of money for our industries. And that is the organizing driver for the world around us. The main force. Money shapes things. There are people who work to orient things towards humanity. What are the things that will be good for humans? That's a different question to ask, and that is the question that we want to bring into our conversation today about science and about ourselves. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. This is a moment for you to ground yourself again. I will read a little bit for you. All right, I'm going to begin with a passage from Knitting for Radical Self-Care, a book by Brandy Cheyenne Harper. Woo, can you see it? This won't pick up very many things. All right. 2020. The J train is humming quietly in the background. The nightly fireworks light the air. The streets whistle with diverse, masked faces chanting, "Black Lives Matter." This is a time of unrest, of a great unlearning. Racism, the patriarchy, heteronormativity, the gender binary are systems of inequality designed to disconnect us from each other, from our hope, creativity, and power. We must dismantle them brick by brick for every generation, past and future. I lost the screen. Okay. Love and determination are the connective threads woven through each of our communities as we work to change laws, redistribute funds, and invest at the grassroots level to create equity among us. We are strong, growing, learning, and searching as we become powerfully, daringly free. Unlearning. Angela Davis says, radical simply means grasping at the root. I think we can leave it with that, grasping at the root. There were some, background pieces here about society unlearning. And what this author is calling us to do is to pull at the root of something and then begin from that place. If it is love, then is that at the practice? Is that at the center of our bird watching? Is it at the center of our science practices? Is it at the center of our education systems? So the first thing we were going to begin outward and go inward is to think about what science is in the world, how you've interacted with it, what it means to you. You can think of, go ahead and note down the first thing that comes to mind when you think about science. Just get those first initial things. This is our bird watching process. This is us looking at the ways that we move in the world. What are our patterns? And this is our data collection work. What is science? Okay. Keep writing about science. I'm going to bring in now a piece. Well, that's screen. The Science of Living with Purpose. Patrick Hill investigates the effects of living purposefully on health, wealth, and wellness, and how to maintain one's purpose through life's transitions. Okay, these are some things from science as you think about science. Leisure. Those who participated more frequently in leisure activities reported a higher sense of purpose. Some interesting data from the scientists. Those who engaged in cognitive activities daily were less likely to experience the typical decline in purposefulness across time. Typical decline in purposefulness across time. Cognitive activities daily. Do you have that as part of your life? Physical activity. Respondents who recently participated in more physical activities than usual reported higher levels of purposefulness. Those are interesting nuggets. We are going to turn the camera back towards yourself soon enough. And we can think more about these things. All right, I wish I could hear from some of you about your ideas of science. Kind of initial ones, and then now if you can move into really what your definition of science would be. And for many people, it does boil down to a process of exploration, investigation. But there may be specifics to it that scientists will say, we do our investigations in a certain way, right? We ask questions. We decide how we are going to track our findings. How will we know the answer to our question? Then we track our findings. That's a process. It's looking at something and writing it down. When you're bird watching, you go out for a different purpose. I'm going to go see what I can see. And you may put it in your app, you may add it to your book. And you have a sense that, okay, here in this northern part of Florida, these are the birds that fly through at this time of year. And actually, we didn't see this bird come through. And what does that mean? We've been tracking data for so long. What does it mean that we don't have this? So tracking our data. And I think the final thing scientists would say is that they're in community. Science is a communal pursuit of knowledge. It's a whole body of knowledge. Once we know some basics, we take that in, we use that information to figure out something else. And of course, really the scientific process is a whole process that helps us justify or explain what we find and our findings to another person. There's a little protocol to say, okay, let's make sure you really did look at it carefully, that you did go through a step-by-step process. And then we need to hear about it and have a sense of whether this knowledge fits our other knowledge. And when knowledge doesn't fit our other knowledge, we can accept that knowledge if we understand someone carefully created that knowledge. And that just takes an explanation, right? However it happens, scientists have all of their different ways of collecting data. All right, we are going to get into our personal reflective activity. We're going to go ahead and start looking at ourselves as scientists now that we've cleared out a little bit of our ideas of what's the purpose of science. Okay, well, now we're going to be able to use science towards our own goals, towards our own life, right? That's the point of this workshop. This is a story that will launch us into this next activity, though, getting us out of science. All right, really still, that's what I'm sad I can't show you my content. This is called The Phantom Host from the Sierra Club's Fall 2021 magazine. All right. In 1969, an undergrad working a summer job in Oregon's Willamette National Forest heard a strange hooting coming from the woods, sort of like a dog's bark. He made the same sound back. The creature responded. After a few nights of this back and forth, a pair of owls flew down and landed in front of his cabin. The student, Eric Forsman, learned that Strix occidentalis, the spotted owl, was an enigma. There was no scientific record of where it nested, what it ate, or really anything about it. He began driving down old logging roads, calling into the forest. Sometimes he would look up and see one following him through the woods as though it was checking up on him. His 1975 master's thesis noted that he found the owls almost exclusively in old growth coniferous forests. An 1981 Forest Service report concluded that if logging on Forest Service land continued at its current rate, most of the old growth forest in the Pacific Northwest would be gone by 2020. Not everyone saw that as a bad thing. The Forest Service was, after all, part of the Department of Agriculture. Many forest managers saw trees as a crop and that their job was to harvest as much wood as possible. If the temperate rainforests of the Pacific Northwest were replaced with tree plantations, many species other than spotted owls, including salmon, elk, woodpeckers, and bats, would be devastated. But because of the research done by Forsman and other scientists, the data for the spotted owl was the most conclusive. If the old growth forest disappeared, or even if it became fragmented, the owl would become extinct. Since the Forest Service's own rules required it to manage the forest in ways that didn't lead to vertebrate extinction, the spotted owl in 1989 began starring in legal challenges to agency logging plans. Ultimately, a judge threatened to bring logging in Pacific Northwest old growth forests to an abrupt halt unless the Forest Service came up with a management plan that would not lead to the spotted owl's demise. The old growth got protected and the spotted owl with it. Okay, we'll stop there. So another paragraph for it. From that story, I really want us to begin thinking of the detail of the one owl and what this person's research created that impacts all of us, right? Like if there was no Pacific Northwest forest, if we were losing this ecosystem, that is something we would feel worldwide. And it was by chance that someone put in this effort to do this deep work. And what? The owls, it saved us all. So the question as we begin our deep work for ourselves today is, what is the importance of this work? Does it matter that you know yourself very well? Does it matter that you take the time, like a scientist, like a bird watcher, to work and do investigations in your own life? And what could happen, right? Like out of something like that, what could happen? Is it personal? Is the only outcome out of this type of work like, oh, great, I'm going to live a more fulfilled life. Great for me. Or is there a very big impact that could come out of prioritizing yourself? That, I imagine a lot of people, they tell us community work begins with ourselves. So, right, these are the practices. These are some from birdwatching. What are the type of practices that we can start to build up? Because while we have many normal science practices focused on external things in the world, count this and measure this, we don't have a lot of processes for ourselves. Now, in the self-help world, there are many processes for self-exploration, but we are starting to see people come together. We art therapists, we have regular therapists, we have scientists who are looking at what happens to the brain when we do this type of self-exploration work. There are wirings as we are emotional about things, different parts of our brains are activated as we spend time with our emotional state. We deactivate a sense of stress within our body because there is understanding. Once we have some kind of connection with ourselves, that stress level goes down. There were so many things in that little science piece earlier about science of self, the science of having purpose, how physicalness connects into our sense of self. There's a lot there. So we're just going to begin, but you can back it up to science if you have questions about why this work matters. All right, so go ahead and take your notebooks out. There are different ways that you can do this work. If you are a writer, and many of us, are taught through school to use writing to express ourselves. Some lucky people got to take art classes and do other things. I would invite you to use any other skills you have. Oh, see, there's so few books that I can show because of the background. Okay, haha, this book, Dear Data, is a project between these two artists, and they tracked things in their life. This is so sad that I won't go here. These are very specific ways that they drew and traced out patterns of things showing up. For 1 week, they might focus on compliments. What are the compliments that I got this week? What did I do when I received those compliments? How did I feel? Where did they come from? What form did they come in? And we know that's like, okay, maybe that's like a little fun thing. Okay, a compliment, maybe it doesn't matter that much. But we do know science will tell us that a sense of confidence and belonging, social acceptance, these are huge factors that affect our well-being. And so tuning in and tracing these elements that the world is like, oh, it's just about you. It's not important. It doesn't fit in the big focus of science through the lens of making money. But paying attention to these details inside of yourself are things that matter. Food preferences. All right, so you go ahead. The task now is to write a description of yourself as if you were describing a bird. And if you need that type of just kind of cueing to get you going, what do you look like? What do you do? We'll get to some more questions soon, but could help if you have a mirror and you actually want to do some of this work. This is a like particular, almost like a generous activity. It's like describing yourself truly. If you, to someone who maybe doesn't know you, what are the things they need to know about you? Think of birds, feathers are one element of it, but that's certainly not what many bird watchers are going to, that's not a factor that's changing day to day, right? We know this bird has these feathers, great. What the bird is doing is usually what's of interest to us. So go ahead and think about what your movements look like. And go ahead and spend some time thinking about where you do your moving. And then the main question would really be, how do these movements intersect with the world around you? What are the specific things that you do? Why do you do them? And we would tend to really look like birds, animals with a generous sense, not as much like humans, where it's like, we do these things and these are right and these are wrong. Maybe that's our main system that moves us through the world, wanting to do things that are right. Does that shape your actions? Does that come from somewhere in your environment? If we want to do things that are sustainable, where does that come from? Why do you want to do that? What does that look like? Is that what you want to do? Is that what you do? If things aren't sustainable, then why do we do the other things? There certainly are reasons. And while we do say, a lot of good and bad here in the human world, in an animal world, we tend to think of animals evolving and adapting to be very ideal to their environments, right? A bird is going to figure out a way to get this bug from the tree. It's going to have a very hard head and a thick beak. That is a specific thing that a bird has that other birds don't. What birds need to breathe underwater? What do we do in our lives that are our special skills? And maybe we still judge them. Maybe you have a way of avoiding conflict that you're like, that's not a great thing about me. Human psychology will tell us we do things that are in our best interest, at least according to us. So, it's pretty logical to little you to see a problem and learn, it's not in my power to do anything. So I would like to walk away. That is the safest thing for me to do. So you learn that in your childhood because that really was the move for you. Now we're humans, we take in a lot of information and our world keeps changing, but sometimes we don't take the time to look at our environment again. Our environments don't look the same as they did when we were children. Some things do, some things don't. Do you know what has shifted? Have you caught up? Are you making decisions based on the current environment or an old one? And that's where we find that maybe we're not adapting that well, right? We didn't do our own evolution work in our own lifetime to move forward. Yes, it was very adaptive for little you to run away. Very adaptive. Our goal is to figure out what's adaptive for you now, right? What is in your best interest? That is what you get by having a chance to sit with something. Maybe there's a change. A lot of changes we probably want to make. And if we want to make changes, we've got big external ideas for how the world could be better, what could be better in our own lives. And as we want to get there, as we want to move there, then what? There is a part of our whole experience that revolves around us and begins with us. And it's the opportunity that we have sort out a lot of things. The world gives us a lot. There's a lot that we certainly do take in. And there's amazing adaptations. I think that is maybe one of the things that bird watching brings, is the reminder of the evolution that this planet has gone through. And the fact that there is a bird that can fly by with beautiful blue wings took how many years of creation? How many years of forming? And so when I am feeling frustrated and, hopeless at the state of things in the world, seeing the intention, seeing the, I don't know if I want to just say the specifics, the reality that through a process of so long, this world around us has come into being because things grow, because things move from whatever they are into something better. And there are more and more offerings in each environment. And now we have all of these things that have been created. So I guess seeing the magic of, right, the world around us. And really, I think the time frame, that it has been so much effort that has gotten us to where we are now. That is not for naught. That is a lot of energy. That is perhaps even what I like, it is the way of the world, that there is the growing, that there is beauty, that there is this matchup between the environment and us creatures moving in the world. It's like a very clear, you put on a science documentary and you see the frogs that live in these puddles and are able to hatch their babies in half the time. When the puddles dry up fast, they'll just swap something in them and can go through all of their stages in half the time. It's amazing capacity, the world around us. All right, so I hope you've gotten some chance to really take note of things for yourself in your environment. These would be ongoing things, right? The practice of science is not a one-time, oh, I took a picture and now I know all about these birds. That's not quite how it works. I take a picture every day and write and compare your findings from each day. Do some analysis work for these data. Topics are fun. Okay. Onward. Personal skills. Okay. All right. So now I've got a story before we close, and then a few resources. Okay, here's our story. It's another one from Sierra Club, but this is from the most recent spring 2022 issue. Cleanup crew. The Ruppel's vulture isn't pretty, but it gets the job done. Ooh, can you see this vulture? It only wants to show human faces. Aha, picking up the eye. All right, this is a beautifully adapted animal. It has purple and pink and blue, and it is a vulture, and we're going to hear about it. Woohoo, okay. Circling African skies, the Ruppel's vulture stands out for its size, wingspan, and high-flying abilities. In 1973, a commercial jet flying at 37,000 feet over Abidjan, Ivory Coast, collided with one and had to make an emergency landing. The birds hadn't been recorded at such heights since, leading experts to conclude that the vulture may have been sucked into the plane's airstream at a lower altitude, but they do regularly cruise. I don't even know why the story had this extra. They cruise at an impressive 7,300 feet. What's important about that part, though, was it hurt the airplane because this is a sizable bird, right? It had to do an emergency landing. All right. Gips rupelli's ability to soar higher than most species comes thanks to a genetic adaptation in their hemoglobin that allows them to function despite low pressure and a lack of oxygen. We know what we had to develop for airplanes, right? And This bird has this. Immature birds, those not yet breeding, have been known to fly thousands of miles across the African continent in search of food, as their unrivaled eyesight allows them to see carrion from high in the sky. Ruppel's vultures' enormous range and the fact that they'll do just about anything to avoid human interaction make them difficult to track. Ornithologist Darcy Ogata is the Assistant Director of Africa Programs at the Peregrine Fund and have spent the last 3 decades studying Ruppel's vultures in Kenya. She says that the birds are notoriously tough to keep tabs on because they make their nests on cliff faces that can be reached only by helicopter. You definitely do not want to get one in your chopper blades, she says, because it would not be pretty. Beyond buzzing the vulture's nests with helicopters, humans have relentlessly tormented them in other ways. Ruppel's vultures are regularly killed for their heads, talons, and feathers, which are made into charms, thought to allow people to see into the future. They're also the victims of poachers who poison the carcasses of rhinoceroses and elephants to kill off vultures whose circling might alert authorities to the crime. In 2020, 2,000 endangered hooded vultures in Guinea-Bissau died after consuming chunks of meat laced with the pesticide methiocarb. And vultures of all varieties are accidentally killed by herders who set out poison meant for predators like hyenas and lions. Ruppel's vultures reproduce slowly, even under the best of circumstances. Adult birds feed their fledglings in the nest for more than a year, and females reproduce only every other year. As a result, the efficient scavengers have been pushed to the brink of extinction. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, Ruppel's vultures numbers have decreased to just 22,000, and they are listed as critically endangered. This is a shame because vultures do nature's dirty work with grace, and the circle of life would be incomplete without them. Their enormous beaks are perfectly adapted to break down carcasses, and they prevent the spread of disease because bacteria and viruses cannot survive their highly acidic digestive systems. Without these birds, many diseases would run rampant. Ruppel's vultures don't need us other than to leave them alone, but we most certainly need them. You know that anyone watching this would be a bird lover who would be sad at this work, this story. Sad at the story, grateful for the reality of the beauty of the bird and the so many specifics. This bird had all of those adaptations. They fly at a super high height, changing their blood flow, their ability to hold oxygen within their blood, within their bodies. They've adapted to do that. They've got their bacteria for dead things. They've got the beaks for the work. They've got the eyesight. They've got the travel. These are special, very special. And I guess that would be the closing piece is we know that this is special because as bird people, we can identify these values. These are things that are clear to us. We did the science work, we added it up, we understand what the outcome is, and that's important to us. When we don't do science work, we may not understand something. The poachers, the people who are busy, right, doing their little job right now, are doing things that have outcomes that they don't know about, they don't care about. And if we don't care about something, why don't we care about it? And maybe we don't know how it affects us. And that's not clear to us, right? That work just hasn't been done. It is the work, it is the responsibility that we have as educators engaging with others who may not be there seeing what are the sustainable options for us, right? And what's sustainable for us is to get other people to be sustainable. And to get other people to be sustainable, we all need to do this self-work. We all need to have clarity about what each person has and their value. We certainly need each other, just like we need this bird. We need each other to be offering our most powerful things, whatever that is. We know that. Very much know that. And we can offer things, right? You know, I have a general sense of myself. Okay, I'm just going to go do some stuff to help the world because I care. And that's fine. You know, spend a lot of hours working on projects, doing things maybe that you don't love to do, but you believe it needs to be done. It's pretty normal. And you can have a passion project. You can do something that you know is in your wheelhouse. You know that you are a person that loves to do this and this, who's skilled at this because you grew up in this spot. You know what to navigate. You know how to navigate certain places. And those are the things that, I mean, you can decide how you want to work. Be efficient, or you could just throw yourself at something. But that's what this invitation is to go ahead, give yourself the luxury of this scientific focus for the sense. If you are, a scientific person and understand how the math is going to add up to be sustainable, it starts with us. That's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed some different things to think about. I hope you will think about your own needs for this self-reflection work. How often do you want to do it? How do you want to do it? What feels good? Because I offered you some things, right? But that's that one fit all generalness that you can pursue. Sit down and write every day. But maybe it's not that. Maybe it's every time you see a bird, then you want to pull this question. I see a bird. I'm watching this bird. Okay. What's my flight path? What have I been doing? Just a chance. The birds are around us, so they're a pretty useful tool for any types of check-in that we want to do with ourselves. The gratitude, reflection. All right. Well, I hope you all have wonderful weeks. I would be happy to reach out with anyone who wants to talk more about these things, wants to do work to take care of others. I'm at a place where I will continue to design different learning offerings for folks based in the outdoors with the goal of being sustainable. So birds are a resource. We're a resource. You're a resource. And that's it. Bye, folks.